We are back at the Tokin Shop Lounge at the Benzinga Cannabis Capital Conference in Chicago, Illinois. We are keeping it rolling with our final guest of the day. Shout out to Angela. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi. Well, thank you for inviting me to the show.
Of course.
Angela. I'm, serial CMO within the cannabis industry. I've been in the industry since 2019. Started with brands like Papa & Barkley, all the Cannacraft brands. I've worked on the dispensary side of the business with Harborside and Urban Leaf.
Wow.
And also with national brands as well. Most recently, global CMO for CISO. And since then, I've been consulting as a fractional CMO for a number of brands, which has been great.
It's been wonderful to see your touch on the brands ever since you joined the team. CCEL is everywhere, so shout out and kudos to your work.
Oh, thank you. It's been an amazing experience where you take a brand that doesn't necessarily have a personality and a face and give it that community approach to how do you connect with the cannabis culture? How do you connect with the brands that are using your hardware to be the conduit of their craft?
Oh yeah, so many folks get it wrong and then wonder why things can't get off the ground, right?
I know, because when something goes wrong, people don't blame the hardware, they blame the brand, right?
Yeah.
So it's so much a part of your brand promise to make sure everything, including the hardware, really makes sense.
Yeah. Getting in that 360 approach, right? So today we are talking marketing for retail specific.
Yes.
We're trying to really get an understanding of what people can do to really get those results in their retailers. So what are 3 strategies that you feel are success driven when it comes to specific brand marketing for retailers?
Well, I think from my standpoint, I was very very lucky to start with Papa & Barkley, which is an education first brand.
Yes.
And we're all about capturing that first cannabis conversation. If you have a product that you truly believe works, capturing that first conversation and making sure that patients and consumers have a favorable experience that's efficacious is so critical. And at the front lines are really your bud tenders. So you're always going to hear me talk about bud tender education, in-store education, making sure that the bud tenders know about your brand, who your target audience is, and what do they need to know about your product that really makes it stand out. So bud tender education first, then second, bud tender sampling.
Oh, yes.
Sampling is really critical because of the integrity and the honesty of a bud tender. If they're recommending a product to you, they absolutely have to have tried it first. I always ask bud tenders when I go to the dispensary, and I go to about half a dozen dispensary visits per week, and I asked them, "What have you tried it?"
Yes, that part.
And if they say, "Well, no, but we just got it in," then that
or they're giving us an incentive to push this, and I want to win the prize.
Because that completely loses the credibility, right? And then now I don't believe this person. So that's, I would say, number 2. And the third thing within that dispensary environment, and sometimes people don't necessarily think of that, is that there are about 40 to 60% of conversions are happening online.
Oh, really?
Versus in store.
People are buying weed online now.
That's right. You got to think about omni-channel. So one of the 3 must-dos is make sure that your products are showing up correctly on their online for the dispensary website. So is it the right product description? Is the image that you're using actually representing your product and your brand well?
Yes.
So that's what I would say. Education, sampling compliantly, and then making sure your digital presence is representative of what your product is so that it's actually shoppable online.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen so many brands that have great products but just don't know how to present it. And the people are confused. And photography, visuals, it is communication. It's almost as important as the words, right?
Oh my God. Like when you walk into a dispensary, or you think about the mindset of a consumer, I don't walk into a store and say, "Oh, I'm shopping weed now, so my expectations are different." You're deciding that, "Oh, I need to buy a cannabis product," and you're going to take all your expectations as a shopper, as a consumer, into that shopping experience.
Yeah, you
so
can't separate it.
We don't use a cannabis part of our brain.
Imagine if we had a cannabis part. I'm only using this section. No, it's completely an approach that people really need to wake up to. A 360 approach. Even earlier, one of our guests is Steph from Headset Data.
Oh my God, using your data and knowing what to look into it and how it's actually going to inform your choices and being data driven, so important.
It's the bread and butter here, you guys. So we know what stuff that does well and kills it. What stuff do we need to retire? What stuff do we need to stop doing?
Well, there are a lot of things that aren't done right. Let's start with copying other brands that are not a cannabis brand, and it's like a knockoff of a children's cereal or...
We know it. You're not being slick. Like, we know what you're doing, right?
Yeah. And it's not funny.
Yeah.
And a cannabis consumer is very sophisticated. They're going to know what you're trying to do. And if you don't believe in the authenticity of your brand and you're knocking off another brand that's available in general market, it comes across as being really disingenuous. So be who you are and create and develop your own brand identity and design that's true to you without being a knockoff of something else.
Yes.
It can also land you in a lawsuit.
I've seen those.
Right?
Yes, I have seen those with specific names. And I think that ultimately it's a little lazy, right?
100%. And I think that's on the brand side, right? But on the dispensary side, having been in the dispensary side of the business, I would say creating a cadence where you're coaching and training your consumer to only shop promos.
Yes, well, they'll only go for this, right?
That's right. On one of the market visits that I went to, not a California state, but an out of state, I was doing a bunch of dispensary visits. This one dispensary had 6 pages of promotions on the counter, and I remember asking the person on the other side of the reception desk, how often do you swap out the promotions? They said, oh no, this is every day. And I said, every day you have 6 new pages of promotions.
Yeah.
How do you even manage that? As a consumer, you're walking into a dispensary and you're going, I'm not really shopping the experience. I'm not really shopping the brands. I'm just shopping deals. That's all I care about. And I think that really minimizes and diminishes what cannabis can do for us, whether it's for relaxing, it's for our anxiety, or it's treating something else that we just want to have taken care of.
Yeah, I think, people got to think more deeply about their consumers as well. I think that sometimes retailers can maybe think, oh, cheap is best, so let me throw all these promos because it's what they want.
Yeah, but then what's the value that you're bringing to your consumer? How is that leading to that loyalty, and how is that creating the repeat, right?
That repeat. That's the goal.
Because it's not about the first purchase, it's about the second and third conversion that really matters.
And having the kind of customers that will go and seek you out and will say, no, that's the dispensary that I'm going to drive that extra mile to because I know the experience is better, right?
100%.
I love that. Yeah, those are really good actionable do's and don'ts. I want to end with reflecting on your first experience of going to their first dispensary, buying your first product. Tell us about that experience and how has that really informed in your journey where you are now?
The first time I walked into a dispensary, I was already working with Papa & Barkley. And as you know, Papa & Barkley has very beautiful packaging.
Yes.
It's very consistent. It stands out. And I was talking to a bud tender, and they were actually giving some advice and some insights. Because the packaging was so consistent, it was actually difficult for them to discern which ratio and the potency it was.
Oh, okay.
And because such a large proportion of Papa & Barkley customers are older, and for them to kind of mix up their medicine is not cool. No. So based on that dispensary experience, I was actually able to go back and redesign and tweak the packaging in such a way that we put in what we call the ratio ribbon, so you can see the proportion of CBD or proportion of THC or proportion of CBN, so that you can actually tell from the get-go what's the proportion of CBD or THC dominance, so that you're able to tweak it for the benefit of the bud tender, but also for the benefit of the consumer. So
educating both at the same time.
Yes. And it wasn't just like, how do I make my packaging stand out? How do I make my visual merchandising better? Is actually, how can I improve the experience for the bud tender and for the consumer to find, shop, and be able to rely on us?
Yeah, because ultimately, we're serving the people, but we're also making sure that we're getting to that end point of sales, right? Increasing sales.
And I think, what do we call that? Occupational hazard, or where I'm like the one tweaking everybody's facings when I'm in a store, and making sure everything's merching out well. And it's not just dispensaries, it's other stores as well. So if your facings aren't right, I'm probably in there tweaking it.
Yes. I mean, and you should be doing that if you have a brand, right? You should be going into the dispensaries and seeing, how you're presented and have that experience from being like a consumer, looking at your brand. It's such a huge aspect of it, right?
I think so. I've had people basically say that when you show up in a store in a way that demonstrates you care about what you do, you stand behind your product, then that gives them that sense of confidence that the products are going to work as well.
Yes. Oh, it does. And also it gives that confidence, that trust that when you drop future products, that those are going to be effective as well.
That's right. Because it's not about what you have right now. It's what you're going to bring on and that promise of what your brand is.
Yes. Longevity. Thank you so much for dropping this knowledge.
Thank you so much for having you on the show.
Of course. And where can people follow you, your work?
Absolutely. LinkedIn is probably the best way of finding me. It's just at Angela Pih, Angela Pih. LinkedIn is where I'm most visible and active. So follow me on LinkedIn. There's a weekly article that goes up that would provide some sense of value and insight into how to do better and improve your brand performance in our industry.
Yes, we need that. Signing off here. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
Tokin Shop Lounge here at Benzinga. Next time.